Hello and welcome to Talking TSM, the Game House's talk show about TSM's LCS team. I am Robert Haynes, and I will be your host, your guide into the world of the TSM LCS team. As a reminder, this show does not have a sponsor yet, but if you are, a company that you like, may want to sponsor this show, reach out at business at the Game House. Thank you. Happy New Year, and welcome to the first Talking TSM podcast for 2021. We have thrown 2020 to the side. We're done with that. Although the start, at least here in the United States, for 2021 has been interesting to say the least. As a reminder, this is not a political podcast, so I'm not going to comment on it. But if you haven't been paying attention to the news, then I don't know what's going on. But either way, we are a little over 1 week away from the beginning of the lock-in tournament. I will go over exactly what that is to help remind you guys and talk a little bit about it later. But it is time to get hyped, TSM fam. Also, thank you to those of you who reached out to be in the Talking TSM Fantasy League. We have 10 people who are interested in the league. So, as of right now, I have sent out the invites. If spots open up, I will let everybody know. But as of right now, I have the perfect amount of people, I believe. So you guys should expect to hear results every week. I'll have a small little segment talking about who's in first, how everything went, how the draft went. It should be at least interesting for me, and we'll talk a little bit about TSM and their fantasy implications, at some point as well. You should also expect next week to be a long episode. I am going to be going very in depth before we go into the season. And if you're playing in another league, going back to fantasy, then keep an eye out at the Game House. I'm going to be putting out some rankings for players and what I expect them to do in fantasy. So if you're in another league and you're going to be looking for a guide to help you during draft day, which I assume most people will be doing, this weekend / next week, you should be checking that one out. Also, there is a new Talking TSM Discord that you can join to see how not only the Draft Buff League is going, but you can talk about TSM with fellow fans. I'm going to be linking that in the description. It'll be on Reddit and on my Twitter account, which is at TGH Robert Haynes, as well. And last but certainly not least, we have a guest. Brooks will be joining in to talk about a very important topic. But before that, Brooks, why don't you come on in and introduce yourself?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Cool. That's actually perfect timing. My headset decided to kind of wig out, and I was like, "Oh boy, I hope he doesn't decide now is the time to bring me in." I got lucky, so here I am.
Hey, I went on a little bit of a tangent there, so it worked out perfectly.
I guess I'll hear it on the playback. Well, hey, good morning. Thanks for having me, man. I love the podcast. I've been listening, I think maybe since episode 2, and I think it's taken a couple tries to get a guest on, but I'm happy to be here. I mean, I want to support things TSM. I want to support people building an environment around that. And so thank you for putting this on, and thanks for having me.
No, I mean, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to have you on. Yeah, Brooks and I have been going back and forth. We've had different things that have kept us from being able to get him on, but he is on now, and he sent me some pictures of his TSM hats to prep for the weekend. I'm wearing one that I got for Christmas. I have another one because I don't know if people know this or not. Again, this is not sponsored by TSM, by the way, but the TSM shop is having insane sales right now. So you guys should go get stuff. I got myself another new hat for the year. I'm pretty excited about it, to say the least. But tell us real quick a little bit about yourself, Brooks. Like, how long have you been a TSM fan? Who's your favorite player? All that stuff.
So I think I started playing League in Season 1. I think I was ranked in Season 1. I don't even remember what the rankings were back then, but League of Legends was kind of like my first video game, truthfully. I mean, I played a
Okay.
couple on Nintendo 64, but someone introduced me to it like in 2009 or the beginning of 2010 in high school, and I fell in love with it. And I remember waking up and wanting to watch Professional League at like 4 in the morning in something called Own 3D TV, if anyone can remember that streaming service from a
Oh
long, long time
my.
ago. It was kind of like a precursor to Justin TV, which I think eventually became Twitch TV. But yeah, I mean, I liked Bay Life. I liked Reggie, and they were like the only ones making content really. And I think Reginald is probably still my favorite player. I think his actual skill is downplayed. If you go back and watch some of his games, he's a good player.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't exactly leaving like because he was bad. He was leaving because Bjergsen was just much better, and he wanted to like manage an organization. But Reginald probably could have played another year, I think. But hey, I digress. I digress.
No, you're good. No, absolutely. I think people really understate how good and how much he really brought to the LCS as a whole, not just TSM. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. I watched like right as like the season that Reginald was, his last season, I guess, which was I believe season 3, 2 or 3. Um, so Dyrus was my favorite player originally, and then I got hooked on the Bjergsen. Quick spoiler: my team for the fantasy league is named the Burger Kings, so um, pretty happy, excited about that one. But
Very appropriate.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. But I'm glad, longtime TSM fans, we get to unite, and we're gonna talk about. I would argue potentially a topic I think I've teased a few times, and one that I've been wanting to talk about. I wanted to talk about it like a couple weeks ago, but then Brooks was like, "Hey, like I really want to talk about this." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna hold off." But I think it's a really important topic. It's the team identity topic, and to give everybody a quick preface to this, Bjergsen has basically been the TSM team identity for so long, and sure, he's still, on the team. He is the coach, but truthfully, it's not going to be the same even with him there. Like he's not going to be the one playing. We are going to need to support the players as much as we want to support him as the coach. So it's not something that I think has really been talked too much about. And so yeah, I want to, like I said, I wanted to give a quick preface there, and now I want to kind of jump to you, Brooks. What do you think about team identity and potentially the direction that they are heading?
Well, I think team identity is important for the fans, but it's also important for the team itself, right? And when I go back and I talk about my favorite player was Reginald, he was like the ruling fist of TSM, like
Mm-hmm.
almost like a ruthless businessman that played mid lane. It's like the shortstop, it's like the quarterback. And he led that team, and now they're, our favorite esports org, and it's a massive fan base worldwide. And then they brought in Bjergsen, who was kind of like this wise professor, and you could trust him implicitly. And even when he didn't play well, you still he was still like a trusted advisor, like someone that like the team could play around. Um, and now with him gone, there was a picture on Twitter, and it was the team. It was the first time I think the team has all been a picture of them taken together. Did you see it? It was like
Oh yeah.
Spica in the middle.
Oh
I
yeah.
loved it. I loved it, but I looked at it for a long time, and I thought, who are we? Like, what are we becoming? And not in like a negative light or a positive light, just kind of like a question. Like I thought to myself, like, who are we? Like, because you look at all these players and you're like, I cannot believe all of these people are on TSM. It's a very different team. It's a very different year.
Yeah.
So then I started to talk to you, and I thought, what's our team identity? Like, who is the Reginald? Who is the Bjergsen? Do we have like a franchise player that we're trying to build? Um, and it's kind of up in the air. I think that there's a lot of work that TSM Legends needs to do, because that's a crafting service that TSM has to
Mm-hmm.
build these brand identities for the players. It's almost even a responsibility of yours to start to prop up narratives. I'm serious. Like, these are like narratives that people can listen to and think like Sword Art is like our new leader, or we are surrounded by like the goofy aggressive play style of like our top lane of Spica Huni, or we're a controlled bot side team with PoE, Lost in Sword Art. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different directions it can go, and I'm just kind of talking about the question out loud. So maybe I've rambled a lot, but what are your thoughts
No,
on some
no.
of that?
I love it. I love it. So, um, I appreciate that you trust me with this new narrative because that's a lot of pressure, but I'm kind of happy about it, honestly. So here's what I'm gonna say. I think there are two categories because I think you brought up two really important things, right? You talked about the team as like their play style, right? Because for so long it's been Bjergsen and forwards, meme, all that jazz, right? Then when we had the 2017 team with Double Lift and everybody else, it felt like it was the Bjerg and Double Lift show, right? And then this last time, it still felt like Bjerg was really the core of the team, but I think things were starting to develop, and so there's that side, and then I believe there's also, the face of the franchise. And there's a couple ways to go about this. So, what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to start with the team aspect, then we'll go into kind of like the face of the franchise. So, um to answer your question, at least team style wise, this is kind of what I expect. I expect that bot lane will have to kind of be on its own to a certain degree. Um, I think that they expect Sword Art to roam. I think they're going to turn Lost into a Cody Sun type player. Maybe an FBI too. I think maybe a mixture of both. And I'm not just making the comparison of FBI because Lost is from Oceania. I do think that they have some similar styles. Which is probably because they played in the same region together. But I think he can make that kind of jump, and I think that's going to be important for this team. And Sword Art is known for being an in-game leader. Like, he is known for being that guy who is going to help make the decisions of the team, macro, really, give them purpose. And his English is so good. I don't think that's going to be much of a transition for him to, go from Suning to TSM. It might take a little while, but I'm not too worried about that. I see PoE continuing to be the control mage, but we saw that he roamed last year with FlyQuest. And I think that's going to be extremely important for this team because I think that what they're going to do is they're going to use him to prop up Spica specifically. And I think this team is going to be really aggressive in their counter jungling because when you look at it, it's not just going to be topside counter jungling. I truly think that PoE will either control the lane well enough or push it in enough to allow Spica to kind of go do his thing and be able to support him. While Huni, honestly, is just going to be up there doing his thing too. Like, this team is weirdly built extremely well to synergize because Spica has shown he can go wherever he needs to help get people ahead, but he is most effective when he is able to counter jungle, when he is able to take control of the game. And so I believe that they have found players, who will facilitate that. So, like if Huni feeds in the top lane or whatever, right? We still have, late game PoE, we'll have potentially late game Lost, and we'll allow Spica to, go to the bot lane and kind of do his thing, right? And take over the game. I think that if they decide they want Huni to carry, right? If it's a Rumble Huni game, which everybody's talked about for so long, then they can have Spica go up there and give him that opportunity to carry. When Huni was at his best, he just would dominate in the lane. And Spica's great at ganking top lane. We've already seen it. So, just talking about this team, again, everybody has heard I've tempered my expectations for this year as a whole, but I do think that their ceiling is really high, and I think that as a team identity, I think that it's going to still be a bit passive to a certain degree, but I do expect them to play more through topside and to really utilize the macro knowledge spread between Huni, Power of Evil, and Sword Art. So that's kind of what I'm thinking there, Brooks.
So I like a lot of what you said, and you pointed out a piece that I think is going to be really valuable to the success of this team, and that is the mid jungle synergy.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like what the potential of Spica and Power of Evil can be. And if you throw in a world-class roaming support like Sword Art, I think that you said passive, but I almost maybe want to push back on that and say we can be a skirmish-heavy team because I I see Hooney flying all over the map with teleports, with global ults, and trying to just skirmish and fight, fight, fight. And I think that's what I would like to see.
Yeah.
But I'm worried about Lost, not because of his skill, but because I just wonder how does can he stay alive? And I think we have had a bit of a ADC problem for a while
Mm-hmm.
in getting them more engaged in the early game. Even Doublelift, I think last year struggled a little bit in the early game in just terms of how do we get this player activated? And if Sword Art's roaming all the time, he's the only piece that I'm slightly worried about, but I could see a skirmish identity developing for this team, especially if we focus on Spica fighting at Scuttle Crabs, fighting at Rift, and fighting at Dragons, and trying to kind of dominate the jungle or the river.
No, absolutely, and I think that's really a good point. And I hadn't really considered skirmishing much. I know it became a lot of the LPL meta and the way that they did things. Um, so I, that's a really good point actually. So we had Benjamin on as the very first guest back in episode 5, and he talked a lot about who Lost could be and why Lost could be a top tier ADC. And I think from my previous shows as well, I talked about, especially when talking with Cody's son, kind of about what he brings to the team, and I do think they're going to have a lot of mixing and matching. I do think that they'll have their starting 5, but I bet Cody's son will be helping Lost. I bet that Hanser will be helping Huni. I think it will be a collaborative effort because I think everybody wants to get to the next level. And so Cody's son is historically one of the best AD carries at just being left alone to just keep control of the lane. And I think that's potentially, sadly or not, going to be what Lost is relegated to if they go with this skirmish heavy style. But I think that he'll be okay in that regard. There's not too many overly aggressive bot lanes outside of the two top tier teams. Now we'll have to see what some of them do, right? We haven't seen, Isles and Rays. We haven't seen, Diamond and Johnson. We don't really know, what Neo, formerly Asta, is going to be. So I can see him, especially early on, being able to hold his own. And I think skirmishing could work. I guess my passive comment was more based off of the fact of how Sword Art has played. I know he's world-class roaming, but, for a new, younger person, they saw at the beginning of the year, last year, with Huang Fang, that they, kind of did a little bit more passive as well. But you're right. I mean, with Spica, he's going to need somebody going and countering with him. So I guess I would say about 80% of the map will be skirmishing, and I think that last 20% right just in the bottom lane may not be. That one, I think that they are going to just be farm heavy, get lost into good positions, and allow him to be the true AD carry once the mid and late game hits. So I think you're right. I do think I can see that being their identity. I think what this brings up, though, Brooks, is that they can play a lot of styles. And I think that
Yeah.
that's going to be important too. And I think that flexibility is something that a lot of teams don't really have. Everybody knows them as this style or that style, or, overly aggressive, skirmishing style, super passive, right? Scaling into the late game. Um, and I think versatility is what's going to be the next evolution for LCS teams and just for pro teams in general. Um, and, we've seen G2 do it. We've seen, to a certain extent, FPX, in the past, even Dam1. And those are what the best teams in the world do. So this could be a team that could do that. I'm not saying they're going to be one of the best teams in the world right now, but they definitely are going to be a team that I think can be versatile.
That's my hope as well. I mean, I know this isn't a podcast for talking poorly about other teams, but I don't want the narrative of being the of the late game team, or the controlled, and like TL was a very good team, but they were not really known for like that early game super strong start. They kind of played a very controlled, calculated game. And for TSM, as a fan, it's much more fun to watch your team when they can pick up level 1 kills, or they like know how to draft like a really well balanced late game team against someone that is trying to take them down early, and you can just counter that and play smoothly through mid and or early and mid, and then take them down in the late game. So yeah, I mean, I'm totally on board. I want this team to be flexible. Hopefully, I wouldn't imagine at first they're going to be that flexible, but I think that the coaching staff can get them there, especially maybe by mid split tournament.
That's kind of what I'm hoping as well. And so, you know, with that, I think that we can then transition, into the how do I want yeah, into the face of the team kind of a thing. And so I think that this is going to be really important, Brooks, because TSM is one of the only teams to have a strong presence at a certain position at a certain time for a long time. Like Bjergsen is one of the very rare players in the LCS who has had basically one team in his entire career. At least in the LCS, obviously in the LEC he had, um, you know, uh, Copenhagen Wolves
Copenhagen
and
Wolves.
yeah, and Ninjas in Pajamas. But it's like, you know, when are we going to see that kind of a player? And I think if there's a team that's committed to doing stuff like that, I think it is TSM. And so I'm going to give you a couple names, and we're going to discuss whether or not they can be that person. And I'm going to save what my pick is last, which will kind
Okay.
of make it obvious probably. But these are the people who I think are most likely to pick up that mantle. Um, I think the first two play the same position. I think that Power of Evil / Sword can be those players. Sword is already so good. He's so young. He's only 18. And I truly believe personally that PoE is a stopgap, which is a term used more in sports, meaning that they fill in a time period until that player is ready. By the time that Sword is 19 or 20, his contract will be up, and he likely will have, in my opinion, moved on. So, if TSM really wants to focus on, bringing the mid lane together, all that stuff, because they've said, TSM Legends is gonna also feature the academy team, right? Like they rarely did in the past. They're going to this year. That has been said. That has been talked about. And I think that's going to be really important. And I talked to Cody Son about it too, and he was like, "Oh, that sounds really good, right?" Like giving their academy players, because I think they expect their academy to actually, be something. Like they expect them to potentially be used in certain ways for this team this year and potentially next year. So, I think Power of Evil, if he performs really well, he's still only, I think, like 23. So he's still, if he plays until double-lift age, he's got 5 years left. 5 good years. So, and he could theoretically be heading into his prime. And I think he might be. So I could see it being Power of Evil, But if they're not willing to commit to Power of Evil, or let's say he doesn't perform as well as they had hoped, I could see Sword. So those are my first two. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on those.
Um, you bring up a lot of good points. I think that there's also some responsibility in the players themselves to make steps to create that identity, right? They need to want to step into a role that is like, I am a TSM franchise player,
Mm-hmm.
or I am like the voice and kind of the new figurehead of this team. And I think that individually, a lot of them have done some things. I like what PoE has done. He is streaming. He's kind of interacting a little bit more whimsically on Twitter. He's putting himself out there. Um,
Absolutely.
I hope, my hope is that PoE wants to stay with TSM and that he could be someone we can trust and rely on. In terms of Sword, it's hard to say. He's pretty young. He could be a dynasty player. He definitely streams on Twitch. I've watched a couple times. I'm not that familiar with him, to be honest, but he just needs more time to grow. I don't think his brand is big enough yet. I don't think his like reach and his influence is big enough yet. So time will tell. But if I had to pick between those two, I'd probably pick PoE as someone that can rise to the occasion, who is mature enough, who has the tenure in professional League of Legends to be able to kind of take on that mantle.
Absolutely. And I think this is important. I think there is a chance that we won't know who the face is for another 2 years. Like, I'm gonna be honest,
Yeah.
because that's when Sword I expect to come up. If they decide to anoint him as the next king of TSM, I think that we could potentially, and this is not my, this is a theoretical thing. My personal opinion is that this is not true. I do think that the player is in the organization now, or the person I should say is in the organization now. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But like you said, I agree. I think if they commit to Power of Evil, he has been super outspoken. He's the one seemingly kind of leading the team right now, which I don't really remember him doing on other teams, whether it was CLG or Optic or FlyQuest. I don't remember him being that kind of a person. And again, like I talked about, him signing a 2-year contract is a big deal. If I remember correctly, the last time I talked to him personally, he's a great teammate and everything, but for some reason he's always done 1-year contracts. So I can see that happening. I can see them maybe already telling him like, hey, here's the keys to the castle, go do your thing. I think another option, again, potentially just stopgap. I don't know. We're gonna have to see. This one's gonna be a little weird, a little out of left field.
That's the excitement, right? Isn't that what everyone, I feel like everyone's on the edge of their seats. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm like, what is going to happen? Like, what is this team? What can this team become?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
look at Hootie's face, and I'm like, man, what a wild card! Like,
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely.
it's so exciting. I can't stop smiling when I think about what's going to happen this year, for
Well,
good or for
I
hopefully
completely
good.
agree. Hopefully good. And I think that with this whole rebirthing basically of the whole team, I think they could potentially do something like with Myth, right? TSM Myth was there during all their playoff games. He's not like super knowledgeable about League or anything, but he's becoming not only the face of Valorant for the team, which is funny to say when they have like Wardell and Sub Rosa and these big players, but like he's also like kind of becoming the face of the franchise that Bjerg was. I think Bjerg's kind of taking the step back, and he's gonna probably be watching every TSM game. He's gonna probably be co-streaming almost every game, and I can see him being in like TSM Legends, like being that hype guy, right, and like becoming a part of what is the biggest team in TSM. And so it sounds weird to say it because again, this one is my out of left field face of the franchise. He doesn't play League. He's not going to play on the team. He's not even a coach on the team. And I know I kind of caveated it with like, oh, well, it can't be Bjerg because he's a coach. But like Myth could be that. kind of a person. And if you don't know much about Myth, you should go check him out. He's seriously one of the best streamers. I'm not even like super big into watching streams outside of like professional teams and stuff, but that dude is just so damn entertaining, and he is like somebody who people attach to very easily, which is why he's only like 21 years old and already, you know, a bajillionaire or whatever. So like, I don't know. That's my super out of left field pick.
I like that. I like that left field pick. Um, I wonder if Myth would feel like he's stretched a little thin on how much branding support he's adding to all of these teams, you know. But he's certainly he's certainly becoming a massive figurehead for our organization, and it's
Mm-hmm.
exciting to see everyone at TSM grow. Um, so when crafting a team identity, inevitably there's going to be losses, there will be wins, and they're going to do interviews. When we lose, who does the interview and who makes us feel okay about the state of our team, Like
Mm-hmm.
who is going to like talk to Travis or talk to you or talk to whoever. I really wish I had more interviewers prepared off the top of my head, but
It'll probably be
who's going to talk.
Latigris. Latigris will probably
Yeah,
do most of
Latigris.
them.
Like who's going to talk to us, to the fans after a bad loss and reassure us. And that person that can do that the best can easily become like the voice of the team, the leader of the team.
Absolutely. And I think at least at the beginning, I do think that will be PoE. Honestly, like I just think he's got the timbre, he's got the experience, he's got the mentality. He knows, how to lose and how to win. I think he is going to be that. I do think Bjergsen will get a lot of interviews, by the way, especially at the beginning of the year. So I do think he will be that person who talks, and I do expect him to be on TSM Legends a lot. But I will say, you also want to train people to be that person. And that brings us to my personal pick, and somebody who I will definitely be talking about here a lot more as the season goes on. Quick shameless plug on my own, I guess, podcast. I am going to be going through and giving a preview to every player on TSM starting this week. So make sure you head to the game house. I will be, kind of going through who they are, what they've done in their past, and what we expect them to be, player wise this year. So, and I'll just be doing the starting five. If I have time, maybe I'll jump into like Cody Sun or Hans or just in case if we expect them to play this year. But to go into it, I actually think Spica. And there's a couple big reasons why. The first one is he showed last year that he is a potentially elite talent in the LCS. He is young. He is entertaining. He is just a good kid overall, and apparently he works really hard. Sure, he still has the kid tendencies where he makes mistakes and blah, 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 like says stupid stuff or does stupid things, but like whatever. Like, he's a great player, and, when they revealed the new LCS logo and the rebranding, Spica was one of the players that they highlighted, right? Like they had all of TSM to choose from. They could have easily just picked Bjergsen again. They could have. That would have been easy for them. But no, they picked Spica. And I think it's time for TSM fans to shift away from the mid lane. Everybody always looks at the mid lane when it comes to League of Legends, when it comes to TSM specifically, right? They're always like, Perks and Caps and Jensen and PoE and Bjergsen, right? And Reggie, specifically for TSM. We've always been centered around our mid laner. And as I kind of referred to when we were talking about like, how they're going to play, like their kind of team style, I would say put the eggs into the Spica basket. Sign him to a long-term deal and make him the face of your franchise. He's a good kid. He's a good player. He's entertaining. Like, he seriously is going to hit all those check marks that you want. And as he gets older and as he gets more experience, he's going to be better at interviewing. He's going to be better at speaking for the team. He is going to know the way that TSM likes to do things, right? Like, you want somebody like Bjergsen, like Reggie, who grew up with the team, right? And investing into a young, solid player is what the LCS specifically needs to do. And so when you look at TSM and you go by position, it's not going to be Hooney. It's not going to be Hanser. You know, as much as I'm excited about Hanser being back, he is not going to be the face of this franchise. You know, PoE has a chance. Sword has a chance. But we don't know what PoE's, tenure here is going to be. We don't know if Sword is even going to stay in the organization. You know, we've lost, people like Cat Evolved and a Blaze Olive, right? Like everybody thought about Blaze Olive was going to be the one to eventually replace Bjergsen, and now he's starting over at Golden Guardians. I think Lost is going to be a really good player, but I don't know that he's going to be the face of the franchise. Maybe he surprises us and becomes like tactical and just goes God mode, right? Like that'd be awesome, but I don't know. And I think that Sword Art's, I don't know that he will stay here past his contract. I'm just going to say that. I hope he does, because that means that he's performing well. I just don't know that he will. So when you look at it, who's the player who's going to have that longevity? Who's going to be somebody who people already like, and who people can attach to easily, and like you said, is going to make us feel better when we lose or when something bad happens, right? And who was like truly one of the only players who showed up at Worlds in his first year, who showed up at playoffs, who showed up during the season, right? Who has taken his lumps already, who's the only player who's coming back this year. It's Spica.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
I agree. I agree, and I'm still looking at this picture of the team on the couch. He's got his hands on the legs of Power of Evil and Lost. He's got that Zoomer energy. He's got that. There's some kind of spark in this kid that, to me, just says a winner. Like he's ready to win. He's good enough to win, and I love the idea of, we have Sword Art, who went to the World Championships, got second. People might not remember or forget from time to time, but Hooney went to the World Championships and got second with SKT, T1 at the time. Like, we have some like legendary players, but our leader is this Zoomer, this kid with the memes, this kid that's hilarious. We can't get enough of him. He's a good streamer, a big streamer. We love his energy in TSM Legends. I'm with you 100%. I think he's not only a good candidate for it, but I think he can embrace it. And I think people want to see, someone lead from, not like, I don't want to say lead from the bottom, but like lead from like the youthfulness that he can bring, and just like the spirit of what this league, the LCS as a whole, kind of wants to embrace, and he kind of exemplifies that. They put him in that video for a reason. He's a young kid. They're trying to kind of revitalize this league a little bit with players, and I mean, if he does a good enough job, Robert, he could be the face of LCS. There's a mantle that needs to be taken. I mean, that's another whole conversation, but someone can be the face of LCS still. Perks could easily come in and take it, but there's room for other people to say, I'm a figurehead in this league, and I'm here to stay. And because we lost 2 grades, so there's room.
Oh, and I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, you got to remember, Perks is still going to be remembered as the LEC guy for a long time, though. It's going to take him a couple years to get rid of that, and we don't know how long he'll even stay. So we'll have to see with him. But like, yeah, I mean, they need young talent. Like, I don't think it's going to be Jensen. Like, I don't know that Jensen is that likable kind of, he's still, I don't know. He's never been somebody who has stood out to me as a likable,
if it's not
thing.
Jensen now, it's not going to ever be Jensen.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean? Like, he's been here long enough where he should have already had it, and he doesn't, in my opinion. Well, so it's not going to happen.
I just do think
put that up. Sorry, Jensen. Sorry, TL fans.
No, you're absolutely right. And again, I personally like Jensen. Like, he seems like a super nice guy, all that stuff. But it's like, he is still going to be compared to Bjerg, no matter what, until he can find a way to surpass him and just do something, I don't know, out of the box, and just really separate himself. He will still always be compared to Bjergsen, even though I know he's done better at Worlds. I've heard that. That's fine. I understand it. But, he is that player who I just don't know that people gravitate towards because, I think he's going to take over the double lift role of the bad guy, which I love. I think that the league needs that. But like as the face like Bjergsen has been, it's got to be a person who's going to be on a team that is good, and that person has to be good. And I think Spica can be that. We'll see. Maybe our TSM homerism is taking over, but either way, I'm very happy about it. This has been a great conversation so far. Um, and I'm going to be heading into some of the other sections here soon. But Brooks, do you have any things you want to put out there? Any self promo? Any of that stuff?
Nothing to self promo. Just keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for putting this show on. Thanks for having me on. I know we took up a lot of time, so hopefully people listen all the way through. But I'm excited to see what develops from what we've talked about today, and I look forward to your analysis going into the season.
Well, thanks, Brooks. I really appreciate you being on, man. It's been exciting. I'm excited to draft with you next week for the
well, I'm gonna be taking you down. I'll take you down.
We'll see. I dominated last year. I ended up losing in the finals in both of the leagues, but I still went like a combined, I think like 10-4 or something like that. So
pretty good, actually.
Oh, you best be ready. You best be ready. It's gonna be fun. I wonder how they're gonna do it with like the lock-in tournament. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. But thanks again for being on. I'm sure we'll talk again during the season and have you back on. You've been a great guest, and no, don't worry about the time. This was a great conversation, and cutting it off before it naturally would have been just been a shame. So I appreciate your time, and yeah, I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks again, man. Bye.
All right, so that was Brooks. Absolutely, great guest. I can't wait to hopefully have him on again. Make sure you guys show him some love. When going through the comments and stuff. But we're going to head into the second section, which is the lock-in tournament. It's coming up next week. We're going to dive into more of the groups and everything else, because by then we should know who's in TSM's group. But that brings me to the formatting. So this lock-in tournament is a first, and it's something that I think they're kind of noticing from, other games like CSGO and specifically potentially Overwatch, where Overwatch was not doing very well, and then they started doing these monthly tournaments, and the viewership started coming back because people, had a good time and they were really enjoying it. I think monthly is too much. I even think bi-monthly is too much. So I think the LCS specifically is doing a great job of giving us something at the beginning of the season, going to give us some more games, but also it's going to give us, something exciting for the beginning of the year. And I'm not somebody who's I like long seasons. I'm a baseball fan. And for those of you who don't know, there's 162 games in baseball and then the playoffs. So I enjoy season-long stuff. I love stats. The more games, the better, in my opinion. I'm still a big fan of bring back best of threes. If they did 3 days a week of best of threes, I would not be upset whatsoever. I know the LPL does something similar to that. I digress. The point is that the lock-in tournament's a really good time for teams to kind of figure out where they are. And TSM being the team that won last year, and FlyQuest being the team that was the runner-up last year, they get to pick their groups. So we talked about it before, who should be in the group. I have kind of gone through. I think, TSM will get first pick. They're going to pick somebody between Golden Guardians and Dignitas more than likely. Personally, I would take Dignitas. I think there's a little bit more known about that team in terms of their players, and so I would always prefer the people who are a little bit more known than what we're going to see potentially with Golden Guardians. There's not like Stixay's the only known player. We don't know what Newbie's going to be. We don't really know what Iconic and Niles are going to be. They know about Ablaze Olive, but he's been out of the org for a little while now. Sure, they may end up being worse. We don't know. 2 of their players are coming directly from college, and one is coming from the Latin America scene. So we don't really know much about those players. So I'd rather take the sure thing, and we know what Dignitas are, and we know that basically when you look at that team, if you just shut down Dardoch or you just get him pissed off, he's gonna potentially throw the game. So I'd say that's their first pick. I'm sure that FlyQuest will choose Dignitas at that point, or excuse me, Golden Guardians. Then I think TSM starts looking at Immortals. I don't think Immortals are going to be very good. I think Xerxes has kind of a career revival. I think he's going to be solid. I don't know about the rest of the team. Maybe Insanity's okay, but I think TSM picked them. Then it's interesting after that because there are a lot of teams. I mean, you still have C9, TL, 100 Thieves, Evil Geniuses, and FlyQuest at that point. Oh, well, I guess FlyQuest is on their own thing. Duh, I'm an idiot. Who am I missing? CLG. That's who it was. I would venture to guess that FlyQuest ends up choosing CLG. Then I think TSM would look at probably Evil Geniuses. Then 100 Thieves would go over to FlyQuest. TSM does not want to face FBI and Huhi again. That will bring back nightmares and PTSD for everybody. Let's just avoid that because, then TSM will be stuck, picking between C9 and TL. And if I'm TSM, I look very strongly at picking C9. And that's a controversial opinion here, but I do think TL will be better. I know Alfari isn't even in the United States yet. I understand that, but the rest of that team has been playing well together. They know, like Santorin has been with them. Alfari's not going to make or break that team to start the year. I think, C9 has proven to have some issues. Fudge is a brand new player. He could, have some issues. Perks is coming over for the first time. He's going to be completely unknown, unfamiliar environment for the very first time ever. And sure, he has all the natural tools. He's one of the greatest players of all time. But there's still something to be said about a player who's coming over and playing for the first time on their own. So, and in a totally new system with totally new teammates. He has not had that for a very long time. So, and we saw the beginnings of G2, they still struggled a little bit. Win Wonder and Yankos and Mickey were all together, right? With Perks. They still struggled early on. They took a little time to get together. I think it's going to be that way with this C9 team. I really don't think that Sven is that great. I think he's solid, but I think he overperformed in the spring, and then I think we saw him back to his TSM form during the summer. Vulcan's really good. No doubts there. Blabber's really good. No doubts there. So, there's some question marks where I think TSM can kind of take advantage. I'd rather play them. So, again, that is a group of Cloud9, of Dignitas, of Evil Geniuses, and I'm forgetting the last one. But either way, I like that group. I know that I'm being an idiot and forgetting who we picked second. Immortals. There we go. Immortals. So, yeah. I think that's a good group for TSM. You just have to not finish in last to be able to get out, because then the top 8 teams, so 4 from each group, they make it into the beginning of the tournament. It's actually kind of similar to how they do things in Worlds for play-ins, and I'm wondering if they did that on purpose. I think they did. And so now they'll play in the bracket. I think TSM will likely, there's a chance even that they finish second in their group, which would put them in like a 3rd, 4th place game. That's fine until they have to face in a best of 3 TL, C9, or 100 Thieves. I'm really not that worried. Once they face those teams, that's a little bit of a different story. But the bracket goes until it goes, or until it ends. And so this coming weekend, I think we'll have all 4 games, I believe. I believe they are going to play all 4 teams in the first weekend. I don't know if they're going to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday and have 2 games on one of the days, or if they're going to go into Monday as well. I hope we get Monday Night League. That'd be great. But we'll know more, I would assume, probably later this week. I'm thinking maybe Friday they'll do some of the announcements with the League of Legends live stream. So, make sure you check that out. But, and then I think they'll draft the groups for the lock-in tournament later this week or early next week as well. So, then we'll head into the season. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm really excited to see how TSM perform. We at least get 4 games of TSM, and then the weekend after that they'll start playing in the best of series. If TSM finishes first or second, then they're gonna end up likely facing probably like a team like CLG or something like that, or Immortals. Whoever ends up being 7th or 8th, which those would kind of be my predictions for those teams. So, because I think that Golden Guardians and Dignitas will end up finishing in 9th and 10th. So, I'd be really excited to see one of those teams, and I think they can make it through the first week, and then, I think that we'll have to see after that. Like I said, once they run into, some pretty good teams. I do want to point this out. While this is not an LCS podcast specifically, it is about the TSM team. Watch out for 100 Thieves. I'm just telling everybody right now, that is our biggest competition, not only in the lock-in tournament but throughout this whole year. We already know how good C9 and TL are likely going to be. 100 Thieves, Golden Guardians was a good team already last year. We saw it. They came on. FBI is potentially a superstar. Closer is potentially a superstar. He has potentially found a new role where he can be a star. And DeMonte gets shit done. That's just how it is. When you add in who is, in my opinion, the best top laner in the LCS, and that includes even with Alfari coming over in Sunday, that team's going to be really good, guys. And that's our biggest competition for Worlds. So keep that in mind going into this year. If we do get a best of 3 series against them, make sure that you watch it very intently. That's our marker right there. If we want to at least be a top 3 team, we have to be able to beat 100 Thieves. Sure, everybody's going to talk about EG, whatever. I'm not worried about EG in the slightest. That team looks like it's going to be super dysfunctional. They could even not make the playoffs, at least at the beginning of the year when they have, the 6 teams make it. So just watch for 100 Thieves. And make sure you watch the lock-in tournament. It's going to be really fun. I'm really excited about that. I think we're going to get to really see where TSM is. Where is our bar? Where are we at? But we're going to head into the third topic, which is the Bay Life Report, I believe is what we're going to be calling it, where we're going to kind of look at what's going on in the world of TSM, the weekly segment. And the team seems to be getting along really well. Brooks and I talked about it. There was the picture that came out with all of them on the couch. They all seemed very happy. There's been a lot of pictures on New Year's. They were playing Werewolf together. They're grinding together and they're having fun together. And I think that that's really important. We didn't see that as much last year. When Kabe and Dardoch came back, Dardoch was just like enamored with Bjergsen, but that still didn't seem like it was enough. And Kabe is, a quiet guy in general, and I think that the team dynamic and, COVID and everything just really didn't help his mental, and so I don't think we got to see, like, the true Kabe. Still just missing my boy Broken Blade. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and I kind of forgot to, a team identity. I actually think Broken Blade would have been great for team identity. Obviously, he's gone. I'm okay with it. I'm dealing with it. It is what it is. But the team's doing well. There are apparently new jerseys coming out, fam. I'm so excited to see this. I think this is going to be a total rebrand, by the way. Like, I think, obviously, we'll keep our colors, but I think we might even see red. Like, that's always been that third color that's kind of there. We got the black and white, and then, they have, like, that little red triangle and stuff. I think that could be it. I really do, and I'm really excited about the possibility of them having red jerseys. I don't know why, even Bjergsen, like his stuff has been themed in red, mostly because of where he's from. But like, yeah, I think red could be it. I think we could have red jerseys this year because like there was also a picture of like Huni and that Power of Evil tweeted out, and there was like he put a big circle in red, like he was like trying to hide something, but then Huni's shirt was in red, and it was for photo shoot day. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Might be, a big old conspiracy theory. Maybe they, just stay with the black and white, which I love. That's totally fine. But if it's red, that'd be hype. That'd be so cool. Although I'm sure 100 Thieves would be like, what the hell, guys? What's going on here? I thought we were the only team in red. But anyways, yeah, and then they had photo shoot day, so that means that we'll get to see all of them officially in their gear soon, which I'm really excited about. I'm wondering what TSM's going to bring out. We talked about one of their New Year's resolutions for the org was to have some new products. I think the fact that they are having such a big sale that's still going on after the holidays, that potentially points to me that the shop is going to go through a complete change. And I think we're going to hear about it either, tomorrow or early next week. So if you're a TSM fan and you want some of the old stuff, like go get it. It's great prices. It's like 50% off on some of this stuff. I think they're trying to clear it all out because I think they're gonna get a whole bunch of new stuff. I think we'll get some new Myth gear. I think we'll get some Bjergsen gear. I think we might even get some Spica gear. That boy loves his clothes. He is a big fashion guy. So wouldn't surprise me to see him getting his own TSM clothing line. And if that happens, then our team identity conversation was spot on because if he's getting his own clothing line, that boy is not going anywhere. I'd also really love to see like sword art. I don't know how they could make it mix with anime sword art online. Maybe other teams in the past have done deals with like anime companies and stuff. I think the Hangzhou Sparks specifically for the Overwatch League have a deal with a character, anime character. I don't know exactly who they are, but she's appeared on some of their stuff. So I don't know. It would be really exciting. I would love to see some new branding and stuff. Know that I will probably buy a few things once it comes out. So yeah. With that, we're gonna go into the last bit here. We're gonna go into the question of the week. And I'm gonna ask you guys, what do you think the 2021 TSM jerseys are gonna look like? Give me your thoughts. Let me know in the comments section. Do you think they're gonna go red? Do you think they're gonna stay black and white? Are they gonna stay with the dragon theme? Are they gonna come out with their own freaking mascot or something? I don't know. Maybe they make zillion shirts, or they make the Bjergsen they're a Bjergsen type mascot, Beardson or something. I don't know, but I really want them to do some cool stuff. So we'll see what they do for the jerseys. If you have thoughts on what they could do or what they are going to do, then let me know. Yeah, if you like this show, please take a second to hit the like, subscribe, and comment if you're watching on YouTube. Also, make sure you hit the bell icon so you don't miss another episode. As a reminder, we do have a new Talking TSM Discord. So, yeah, go, like I said, that'll all be in the description and everything. Make sure that you go and do that. I also want to make this the number one TSM podcast on all podcasting platforms. So if you feel so inclined, please leave a review. I would really appreciate it, especially on Apple. The more reviews we get, the more people that we can get watching, and the bigger the Talking TSM family can grow. And I just really want to continue to have great conversations with people like Brooks, like Benjamin, who's been on before, like Cody's son. The bigger we get as well, the more guests I can probably have on. I will be talking to TSM this week, hopefully. Maybe I can get somebody on for this week's episode or even next week's. They normally have press day before the LCS season begins. I imagine that we'll be getting that potentially. I don't know if they're going to do it before the lock-in tournament or not. I still have to work with the LCS crew on that one. I'll be emailing them probably today to get a good idea on that. I'm hopeful. By the way, if anybody from TSM is listening, please let me do some interviews. I know that TSM does not normally like to, but maybe, with everything else being new, maybe you'll also be more open to interviews by people like myself. So please, that would be awesome. Yeah, and please share this with your friends, guys. You can find the official tweet if you're on Twitter at my account at TGH Robert Haynes, or on the Gamehouse's Twitter account at TGH Esports. Make sure that you follow both for all the TSM news that you can think of. Please use the hashtag TalkingTSM when tweeting at us or sharing anything. And with that, finally, after all of those end announcements, thank you for tuning in. The show comes out as a reminder every Thursday, and it's exclusively for your TSM ear holes. I'm Robert Haynes, and this has been Talking TSM. See you next week.